Good morning, everyone. Am I audible?
Good morning,
Good morning,
sir.
sir.
Yes.
Good morning,
You're
sir.
audible.
Okay, great. So, today I shall be talking about the poem The Wasteland. And for all the practical purposes, you know, just let me begin with first, let me begin with the publication details of the poem. And the poem was first published in the year 1922. 1922 in the magazine The Criterion. In the magazine The Criterion in London. In London. And it was also published in the same year, that is 1922, in an American magazine, the Dial, D-I-A-L, New York, in New York, right? So the publication is important, important because those who try poem as a kind of reaction to the atrocities and to the dehumanizing aspects of First World War, that is from 1914 to 1918, that can be easily seen that it must have been written in a kind of response to the consequences, to the, as Eliot himself puts it, the vast panorama of futility and anarchy. The vast panorama of futility and anarchy which was there after First World War, 1922. The next thing is the poem The Wasteland gives an eye-opening account. The poem The Wasteland, in the same thought process which I was just talking in terms of the First World War, right? And the kind of definition which we did in the first class while referring to the famous book of Marshall Berman, All That Is Solid Melts into Air, right? Where we have been told that modernity is so fast, it's changing fast, right? It's adopting new ways, new forms, new mood, new mode. It's a kind of continuous renewal and disintegration, right? So you have to keep that in mind. Plus, which I was just talking in impacts of First World War, right? So in that way, the poem The Wasteland is what? An eye-opening account of barrenness, the kind of futility, the kind of anarchy, and the kind of spiritual chaos uh, that was the high sounding, uh, high sounding, let me put it ironically, achievements, of mankind, achievements of mankind. And in the last talk, somewhere I was referring to the Frankfurt School, and I was talking about how the Frankfurt School simply questioned the very idea of enlightenment, the very idea of enlightenment. Let me talk about the same in the context of the wasteland and T.S. Eliot's writing. And I'm quite sure that you all be finding Eliot too questioning in a way, in his own way, the project of enlightenment. The project of enlightenment, ironically, the First World War. Ironically, the centrality of capitalism. Ironically, ironically, the supremacy of machines, the supremacy of industries, the transformation of human beings into robots, into machines, and how the affluent society, rather, how one can't give a miss to the role played by money in the societies across the world, though he talks about Europe first, across Europe in that way, whereby this money has simply degenerated human beings, has simply made them animal, has simply made them slave to their own desires, slave to their own wishes, right? So Eliot in the poem The Wasteland refers to the kind of barrenness, the kind of spiritual chaos, the kind of futility and anarchy which was there in the wake of, in the aftermath of First World War. Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, right. So now the wasteland as a poem, as a poem also highlights, it also highlights various levels of disintegration. Disintegration is the key, be it the realm of morality, be it the more the area of ethical norms, be it the question of religious practices, everywhere, moral, ethical, religious, everywhere one can see the degraded state of values, the degraded state of values, which again I'm referring to due to this mass industrialization, this mass transformation of human beings into machines in that way, and the impact of First World War. First World War, right? Okay, yes.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir.
Kind of spiritual crisis, the kind of moral degeneration, the kind of ethical erosion, and the kind of religious depravity which which Eliot talks about in this modern wasteland. In this modern wasteland has been beautifully, quite precisely, and in a compressed manner, it has been uh, reiterated by his contemporary William Butler Yeats, W.B. Yeats. And I would like you to refer to the first stanza of his celebrated poem, Sailing to Byzantium. Sailing to Byzantium, where he says that that is no country for old men. That is no country for old men. The young in one another's arms, birds in the trees, those dying generations at their song, the salmon falls, the mackerel crowded seas, fish, flesh, or fowl, commend all summer long. Whatever is begotten, born, and dies, and most important, caught in that sensual music, all neglect monuments of unessaying intellect. Unessaying intellect. And they all are caught in the sensual delight, sensual music. The celebration of senses, the celebration of indulgence into the acts of sex and sexuality, right? It has been the first stanza. It is the first stanza of Sailing to Byzantium of W.B. Yeats. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
You
sir.
got it.
Yes.
And now look at this stanza and just try to talk about, and we shall try to see these lines of W.B. Yeats and major concerns of Eliot in the wasteland are almost similar. We shall see to that when we will come to the text. Now, just 1 second. Now, the wasteland, as I said, is about the kind of futility and anarchy which the then European society was. This wasteland, this spiritual wasteland, talks about isolation of man from God. We already have seen Eliot proclaiming that he is a Catholic by religion. You remember that? Does he say that? He's a Catholic by religion. Does he say that? Yes?
Yes, sir.
And being a Catholic, and if you are reading Murder in the Cathedral, and the way I was talking about the impact of his grandfather and mother, and the way he has read Hindu scriptures and Buddhist philosophy, on that basis, one can affirm that Eliot had great faith in God, traditional Christian God. And he could see how, in the wake of so-called scientific temper, in the wake of scientific reasoning, in the wake of scientific pursuit of Charles Darwin or of Friedrich Nietzsche, or the way Christianity has been reducing to churchianity. That is the famous phrase of whom? Do you have any idea? Who has said this? Christianity reducing to churchianity? Christianity reducing to churchianity. Anybody? Who has said this? Yes? Maybe John Ruskin, please confirm this. Maybe John Ruskin. Anyway, so these things has simply, as I was talking about the brother Job as well, if you remember that. So somewhere the very idea of God was into question, and the kind of sanctity, the kind of sacredness, the kind of values which were being attached to the very concept of religion was somewhat no more in that way. Were somewhat no more. So in that dire scenario, dangerous scenario, Eliot talks about the importance of religious pursuit, the importance of devotion, the importance of faith. One should have the faith intact. One should surrender oneself to service of God without any question, if or but. So this kind of spiritual wasteland, which talks about isolation of men, human beings from God, is, according to Eliot, a situation of life and death, life in death, and death in life. Again, think about famous The Rime of Hansel Mariner by S.T. Coleridge. Life in death and death in life. The modern Westlanders are living, they are surviving, they are existing, but they are not as it must have been. They are not as it should have been. It's a kind of life in death, and death in life situation. People have become mechanical, people have lost their ground, they have been alienated from the morals, the values, the principles, the ethics, and the religious pursuits. They all have become machines, they all have become inhuman. They all are dehumanized. They are killing people without any question, without any moral scruple. They are using modern weapons to kill millions. Is it the enlightenment? Is it the result of whatever we can call in terms of the growth of human consciousness from the primitive ages to the modern age? Is it modernity? The answer is perhaps no. Am I clear? Hello? Hello?
So it's clear.
Yes, sir.
Now, this wasteland, this 20th century modern wasteland, is not something new, is not something original, is not something exclusive, is not something which was happening for the first time. For the first time, human civilization, human cultures across the universe, across the world, have had the misfortune have had the misfortune to experience several wastelands, right? So this is not something new. And when you read his tradition and individual talent, there he talks about tradition not in terms of the pastness of the past, not in terms of what? Pastness of the past, but of its presence too. So the present can better be understood, can better be explicated, explained, can better be experienced in the light of the past. Because past is no longer a remote entity, as we have seen in the theories of Vico and Spengler, that past is not something remote. Past is what? Circular, cyclical. Whatever human actions have been, they are of recurrent nature. They recur time and again. They recur quite often, cutting across the region, cutting across the geography, cutting across the religion or even ethnic identities. So the kind of wasteland that is in the first half of 20th century is not something new, is not something unique, is not something for the first time. It is temporal, time bound, time specific, as well as it is timeless. And one can easily find the remains of this, the reverberations of this wasteland in the past as well. We will come to that later on. But am I clear so far?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Good. Hi, Ram. Now, the moment Eliot refers to cyclical, circular, and the moment Eliot refers to the tradition, the culture, and the past, not in the sense of the pastness of the past, but of the presence too, Eliot refers to a new kind of writing style, a new method of composing his ideas, which is known to us as the mythical method. The mythical method. Yes? The mythical method. What is a myth? Anybody? What is a myth? Yes. Please.
Sir, there are myths are legends or stories that have been passed to us generation. They may be true.
Say it again, say it again, say it again.
Sir,
You're
myths
not
are
audible, bit, a
legends.
bit louder.
Sir, myths are legends or stories that have been passed on to us through generations, and they may or may not be true.
Very good. Very good. Somebody else? Myth. Very good. Yes, agreed. Yes. How do you look at myth? What is a myth? Yes. I'm waiting.
So, so,
Mm-hmm.
so myths are stories that are used to tell or narrate in a traditional incident or accident to educate or to tell people that it is the significance of this action or this object or this thing.
Okay. Good. Very good. Yes. So, as you are saying, myth is a kind of ancient narrative, ancient story, and that
Yes,
is
sir.
being handed down, passed down to us from one to next generation, mainly in the form of orality. Yes, no? Mainly in the form of what? Orality, oral literature. Very good. I also think that myth is about myth is about the relationship. Myth is about the relationship between human beings and nature. Between human beings and nature. It means since the dawn of this humanity, this civilization, human beings have been observing the natural phenomena, and whatever he could understand, whatever he could bring to the gamut of his understanding, whatever was explicable is explicable to other fellow beings. That's all right. But whatever he could not, whatever the natural phenomenon was out of his understanding, the rising of the sun, the rising of the moon, setting of the sun, tides, right? I mean, several things, millions of things, which he couldn't explain, which he couldn't understand, which who could feel awe at, awe. Oh my God, what is this? A kind of fear, a kind of respect, a kind of veneration. Oh my God. So all those things would become the part and parcel of myth. And the prime inception would be the not understanding of the human being about that particular thing. And from that, lack of knowledge, lack of understanding, lack of control, lack of that proper information must have compelled human beings to create stories, fictional stories, imaginative stories, and talking about their relationships with them. And that we can safely call to be what? A myth. Did you get the idea?
Yes, sir.
Do you have something to say? You can say. Yes. Okay, no problem with that. So, myth. I'm talking about what? The mythical method. And the mythical method that is based on what? Myth and anthropology. Anthropology. If you remember, I was talking about various new kinds of writings in the field of mythology, in the field of anthropology as well. I'm talking about, if you remember, James George Fraser's The Golden Bough, and Miss Jessie Weston's From Ritual to Romance. From ritual to romance. I will talk about them later on. But as far as literature is concerned, Eliot is not the first one to use this mythical method in his The Wasteland.
Sorry for interrupting, but your voice is breaking a
Can you
lot.
name anybody else belonging to 20th century who adopted this mythical method? Anybody else? Any writer? Can you name? Can you at least try? Yes. Do you
So
remember James Joyce? No. Do you know him? James Joyce? What a question, Sarji. Who doesn't know James Joyce? What about his novel Ulysses? Yes. Just wait. Am I audible? Audible. Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible, but your voice is breaking a lot.
Now what can I do for this? Is it the same with everybody?
yes, sir.
What?
So
I
your
am
voice is
broken.
breaking. Your voice is breaking a lot between the conversation.
Huh. Wait. Just wait. Now, now what is the case?
Sir, it's very much clear now.
Okay. So I was talking about the literary writings which employed mythical method. Mythical method. And I was talking about James Joyce. James Joyce and his novel Ulysses. Agreed? Agreed.
Yes, sir.
So James Joyce uses the method in Ulysses in an elaborate and expanded manner. And this is simply because Ulysses is a novel and you have more pages in a novel than in a poetic piece. But Eliot uses this method, that is what? The mythical method, with the technique of compression, which I was talking in terms of his poetic credo, and telescoping with poetic shorthand. He links the modern contemporary predicament with other histories of the past, comparing and contrast, a kind of parallelism, a kind of what? Parallelism in that way, whereby the present is being understood in the light of the past. So the past and present both are yoked together. Both are yoked together to make a better understanding of the past as well as of the present. In this technique, as I said in the beginning, the past is not remote entity, but past and present both are interrelated. Interrelated. They merge together to make a deep, insightful commentary on modern crisis and disillusionment. And disillusionment. Am I loud and clear?
Yes, sir.
Do you want to ask something right now? You can ask. Yes. Any suggestion, query, any remark, any statement? Yes, you can. Yes.
Sir, can W.B. Yeats also considered an employer of the mythical method due to the Celtic revival that he brought about?
Yes. But whereas the Celtic revival of W.B. Yeats was limited to his own country, that is Ireland. That is what? Ireland. In comparison to that, T.S. Eliot's references to this mythical method encompasses the world, and he in his mythical method refers to the mythologies of different countries across the world, be it ancient biblical world, be it Greco-Roman, be it Indian, right? So he is rather more, in a way, cosmopolitan kind of. He is the one, in a way, he is a globalized writer. He's a global writer in that way, who talks about the mythologies of different countries across the world. Across the world. So in that way, yes, W.B. Yeats undoubtedly, as far as his Celtic revival is concerned, he has been one effective user of Irish myths, Irish songs, Irish folk life. Okay, am I clear?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Uh, Sir, I wanted to ask that you talked about mythical methods. So, sir, is it the same as archetypal criticism or is it different?
Uh, I shall be more than happy to talk about this when I shall be talking about Arthur Fry. Okay. But for the time being, just 2 to 4 minutes more, as the question is important. What is an archetype? Prachi, how do you look at archetype? Yes.
For something which is involving a historic event or a myth from the past.
Just wait. One of the definitions of archetype which Northrop Frye proposes, Northrop Frye, and he says that an archetype is an image, and you can talk about image in terms of characters, motives, themes, plots. So he says that an archetype is an image which recurs. What is the key point? Recurring. Recurring. The process of what? Recurring. Which recurs often enough. Which recurs what? Often enough. Where? In literary writings. In literary writings. To be recognizable. To be what? Recognizable as one's literary experience as a whole. As one's literary experience as a whole. It means what? It means whenever a myth adopts the quality of being recurrent, the quality of what? Being recurrent, cutting across region, cutting across geography, cutting across time and space, it becomes an archetype. Getting? Am I clear?
Yes, sir, got it.
Why do you look at the characters of Mahabharata, the situations of Mahabharata, the actions of Mahabharata, Ramayana, Greek mythologies, Greek heroes, Greek heroines, Helen, Clytemnestra, Agamemnon, Paris, Priam, Orestes, Electra, Oedipus. Why do you consider them myth? First of all, they're antique, pristine, right? And the second important thing is they are not remote. They often recur. And we can have an Orestes here, we can have an Odysseus here, we can have Ravan, Ram, Bharat, Duryodhan as well. Yes, na? This very quality of being recurrent, this very quality of recurrence, recurring often enough across time and space of Amit, is archetype. Archetype. Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, I was talking about the texts, especially Miss Jessie Weston's From Ritual to Romance, which was published in the year 1920. 1920. And this book talks about the famous biblical myth of Holy Grail, of Holy Grail. And this book recounts the story of biblical Kingfisher. Once upon a time, how Kingfisher used to live, and he used to reign a particular kingdom. And as he was impotent, due to this, his regime, his country, his kingdom encountered a wasteland in terms of drought, in terms of famine, in terms of starvation. Then he was advised that he should be washed. He should be washed by the water stored in the Holy Grail. Stored in the Holy Grail. Now, what is this Holy Grail? Holy Grail is supposed to be the last utensil, vial, pot, which was used by Christ. As it was used by Christ, so it developed certain medicinal qualities. And once it got disappeared, it was disappeared. So Holy Grail becomes a kind of desire, a kind of cherish to possess that, for it has magical qualities, for it has medicinal qualities, and it can restore health, it can restore vigor and vitality, it can restore optimism. So the myth talks about how certain people of King Fisher, they just traveled far and wide in the search of the Holy Grail. And Holy Grail was somewhat kept preserved in the Chapel Perilous. Chapel Perilous. Out of many, the most sacred, the most pious, chaste, the man of integrity, the man of sincerity and honesty will have the power, will be entitled to take control of that Holy Grail. And in between, there would be so many questions and answers which he has to pass. A test has to be passed, an exam has to be passed. Then only he can possess, he can control, he can hold that Holy Grail. And then that Holy Grail to be brought back to Kingfisher, out of which he could take a pious bath and then restoring to his previous health and just eliminating the wasteland. Eliminating what? The wasteland. Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
The story of Holy Grail has been told and retold in many ways. So we have ancient that round table, the King Arthur, medieval king, the King Arthur, right? Galahad, Perseus, and if you remember Tennyson's The Ideals of the King, the Ideals of the King is the celebration, is a retelling of the same Holy Grail. And this is the myth which is there in the text of Miss Jessie Weston, From Ritual to Romance. Okay? From ritual to romance. Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Now, James George Fraser's The Golden Bough, a study in magic and religion. A study in what? Magic and religion. Written in 12 volumes. Written in how many volumes? 12 volumes. Right? 12 volumes. Beginning from 1890 to 1936. 1890 to 1936. Okay. Hello.
Yes, sir.
And this particular book, that is The Golden Bough, it talks about encyclopedic. It talks about what? Encyclopedic study of primitive life. Primitive life. Encyclopedic study of what? Primitive life. And offers an extensive study of myths and rituals across the world. Extensive study of what? Myths and rituals across the world. It talks about mainly the myths of dying gods of ancient Egyptian civilization, dying gods of ancient Egyptian civilization, and it also talks about the cyclical nature of nature itself, that is winter, spring, summer, a cyclical system. And he says that almost every civilization, rather all the civilizations across the world, have this cyclical process of seasons and of harvesting. And of what? Harvesting. Right? Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right? And this was a text, rather these were the texts which made great impression on the poet T.S. Eliot. I think that's all for today. I will be continuing the same, with your permission, tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Are you willing? As it is Sunday tomorrow. Yes.
It's fine.
What?
It's fine. If you take class on Sunday, it's fine.
ठीक है ना? 10 o'clock is all right? Should I come or what?
Yes, at 10 o'clock is fine.
Okay. Then only we can do this introduction part of the wasteland. And then from Monday onwards, we can come to the text of the wasteland. Okay?
Okay, sir. Thank you.
In little lengthier, but I can't help. This is demanded by the subject. And I am quite hopeful that you must be imbibing a lot. Are you?
Yes, sir, we
Yes,
are.
sir.
So thank you so much. Tomorrow morning I shall be sharing the link. As it is Sunday, so please don't accept anybody else's invitation to join any kind of meeting. So 10 o'clock sharp tomorrow. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.